to how to buy your first rental property in Greater Cleveland, Ohio in 2026 and 2027. Things have changed. And what I would also say in the last year, also things have changed in Cleveland, in the Greater Cleveland area. There's new laws, there's new regulations, there's new risks. And so I wanted to go through a little bit of how to plan in general to buy your first rental property, as well as planning for Cleveland specifically, and this time 2026 and 2027. So there's higher rates, there's shifting rents, there's rising costs, and this all plays into exactly what's happening in Cleveland specifically. So as things have changed with all of these things, that doesn't change the fact that historically real estate has consistently been one of the most powerful tools that the wealthy have used to preserve and build wealth over time. It's a tangible asset. It has special tax advantages, and it produces income as well as it acts as a long-term hedge against inflation, which is very important in today's age. And it does it in a way that very few other investments can. This guide walks you through 15 steps that every first-time investor in Cleveland in this market, 2026 and 27, should follow to buy smart and build lasting wealth. So first of all, I'm going to start with step one. There's 15 different steps, and I'm going to be sending you a video for each step. Now, we also have just a white paper with all of these steps in it. But the videos are going to have things that you're not going to find because I'm always speaking off the top of my head and giving you real world information that's a lot more than just the quick summary. So it ends up being a lot more helpful. Also, feel free to reply to any of these, asking more questions and getting clarifications. And we'll either respond to you or hopefully I'll be able to actually send you a specific video answering your specific questions that help with that. One way or the other, we want to make sure that your questions are answered and that this is really a ton of value and really helpful for you. So without further ado, I'm going to get into step one. So what you need to know before buying. Obviously, you've heard mindset and all of that, and probably if you're reading that, you've already given some thought to this. But before you even talk to someone, you need to understand what you're really stepping into. And this is something that when I bought my first house when I was 19, first rental property, and I had gotten a lot of mindset, but sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And there's a lot of information out there that oftentimes is just not 100%. It might be helpful, but it doesn't always give you what you really need to know because oftentimes there's incentives to not, especially by the gurus out there who sell courses. So first of all, rental property is said to be passive income. It's not. It is a business. And there are things that you can do to make it more passive, but just remember, it's a business and requires real business skills. You'll see podcasts all over, and they're telling stories of people who, with no money, no skills, no nothing, created an empire of 50 houses in a single year. And what they don't tell you is what's about to happen to that person. They're probably going to lose it all. Or perhaps, if not, they have access to special resources. Daddy's backing them. Or mommy. They'd already had a huge success and sold a company and made a lot of money. And so all those things are game changers, but not everybody has that. And so you don't want to just get into this like someone else did, but without their resources, their skills, their knowledge. And also, frankly, some of these stories are just plain either built on a false premise or you don't know what's about to happen. And I certainly saw that when I first got into REIA at 18 years old. Basically, REIA was all about a real estate investment association, the local group. There was probably a small handful of 5 to 10 sharks, I'll call them, put that in quotes. And then there's probably 50 to as many as 500, depending on the REIA group, of people that were more sheep in various stages, right? And the sharks typically took advantage of the sheep, right? So they would make a lot of puffed claims about what income a property could make, how much money they're making, how much money you can make too if you do just like them and follow their mentorship. Of course, after the sale, there was no mentorship, right? So they'd sell you their property, make 50 grand and be gone, right? And so you think, oh, wow, hard lessons to learn when you're 19. And what I would say is even the sharks, this was shortly before the 2007, 2008 financial crisis where everything just dropped. In Cleveland, you had a property selling for $180,000. I remember Cleveland Heights, there was one I purchased later. It was selling for $180,000 at its top, ended up selling for $5,000 at auction like a couple years later. So a lot of people lost their shirts, investors, even the sharks, the ones that presumably not only were doing things perfectly, but also making a ton of money, taking advantage of other people, they were still losing it. So basically, there was no RIA group a couple years later. They were all gone. It took about 10 years, I think, for RIA to come back, and it's never been back the way it was before. Probably a good thing. Not that there's not some good resources in RIA-type groups, but I think it's probably always going to be a lot of selling seminars. That's where they make their big money. That's the money being made. So, or selling supposed deals that end up not being there. So the truth is, whether you have a manager or not, there's real risk. A tenant can stop paying. A sewer line can collapse. Oftentimes, a property is sold as an investment without the disclosure that, hey, there's like significant delayed maintenance here. So the money's coming in at this moment, but any given moment, the tenant can move out, and suddenly you have an $80,000 really renovation to put it into like close to Class A status, where you can really get a decent long-term paying tenant that's going to be there for more than a few months. And so a lot of times you just see the numbers, they're presented to you. It seems like a can't lose deal. And by the way, that's one of the things I tell people a lot. What's the 4 words that you can say that I already know? You might as well just send a TV pastor some money because you're not going to get it back. You might as well just take a withdrawal and burn cash. When you say these 4 words, I know you've already lost a whole lot of money. It's, how can I lose? If you say that word, if you think it, I think it's almost like you've already lost the money. Do not ever say or think, how can I lose? Okay. How can you lose? This deal's so good. And I can tell you a lot of stories, which I won't. So anyways, there's a number of ways to lose, especially in Cleveland, where most of the houses are 100 years plus old. And even the ones that aren't 100 years plus, they're still 80 years, right? Or 70. So the newer ones are 60 to 70 years old, and most of them are 80. Or most of them are really more like 100. And frankly, a lot of times you don't even know because most of the online systems, most of the record keeping systems only started keeping records in like the 1920s. So you'll see a lot of houses dated 1920 in the public records. They're really old houses. So you want to go into this with the proper expectations. This is not like buying a stock or a bond. You buy it, you never thinking about it again, and suddenly, eventually the market brings it all up. Well, if you don't maintain your investment, if you don't have CapEx expenses, if you don't pay attention when it's vacant, and pay real close attention, if you don't take care of your tenant. And frankly, if you have a property manager, you have to get back to your manager because they can only do so much when there's a big thing. So you can't say, give it to the manager, I'll never think about it again. Not unless you put $50,000 into that manager's bank account. And I don't blame anybody for not trusting any manager with 50 grand cash and unlimited. We don't do that in our property management company, and I don't think anybody should. So because you really should be putting a little bit more eyeballs, both at the numbers and on the property itself. What I will say is just the simple act of going and looking at the property yourself every few years is going to fix a whole lot. If you went and saw that property, you might see what the numbers didn't tell you up front, like the basic numbers. Oh, this is a really weird floor plan. Okay. Oh, look at this street. This supposedly middle-class, C-level neighborhood, bread and butter, looks more like an F. There's shoes hanging off the wires. There's like, oh, look, you learn a lot. And how do I know this? By the way, this is like a whole lot of me seeing what goes wrong after managing thousands of units over the years, right? You look and you see the complaints. We can only manage a range of potential scenarios that would come with each property, right? So you're always going to have a range of risk with the property. And a property management company can try to reduce overall risk and manage that with knowledge and predictive intelligence. But there gets to be a class of risk that's so high that nobody can really remove all the negative possibilities that come with the property itself, no matter who manages it, right? And there gets to be a level where oftentimes the one where the investors see the numbers they want to get in, that only really somebody like lives next door and can be there all the time can really manage it. And even then, they can only manage it so well, right? If there's a gang on either side of the house, and they're opposite gangs and they're having crossfires. And by the way, we've known other managers where they had like a guy on a roof, fixing a roof, and suddenly they're looking down and they're seeing guys take shots. They're in the middle and they're watching people shoot, and bullets are flying. Let's face it, you don't want to have a house like that. You don't want to hear about your tenants getting shot. You don't want to hear about your property manager getting shot. You don't want to buy it and not be able to get a property manager, or your property manager, after they realize how dangerous it really is in that little block there, and then you're like, well, who's going to manage it? Nobody. It's you now, baby. So anyways, again, it's more than just a risk when humans are involved. And that's just the point I want to make. This is a real business, requires real skills. You should have some assets. And so I think that's the biggest point. Step one, understand that this is exactly that. And think of it as a business, not as a passive investment, not the first start. And thanks for listening to this video. By the way, if you're an active property manager already who has a property and wants to talk to a team member about possibly property management that can help reduce the potential risks and help you manage with more profit, feel free to schedule in the link below this video with one of our team members to talk further. And also feel free to comment or reply to the original message that may have come sending this video to you with questions you may have. And we'll be sure to either answer them or possibly even make a video for you that we can add to this to help you understand and get your questions answered.